Hi everyone, welcome back to the desk corner if you've been here before, and welcome to a new video. In today's video, I'm excited because we are going to be filling out the very first page of my brand new Ohuhu Marker Pad sketchbook. Now, I had a couple of previous videos talking about the Ohuhu markers, one being my initial first impressions of them, and then also they were included in one of my art haul videos, so definitely check that out. I'll link those down below if you haven't seen those yet before. But I was so excited to actually use my markers in this sketchbook. I've seen a lot of artists using alcohol markers to create landscapes and things like that, and I really wanted to try my hand at this, but I kept it simple in this picture with just one tree. You could see the sketch of the tree I already drew in here. I wasn't too worried about the sketch because I figured that I was going to make the tree branch and trunk, or the tree branches and the trunk, pretty dark anyways, and the sketch would not show through. So you could see that I'm being kind of careful not to overlap the colors too much because I didn't want that brown to mix in with that green too much. I actually wanted them to be separate. I added in a bit of red, which were meant to be fallen leaves, but I think I added them in a little too late, so they weren't the right shapes that I wanted them to be. At least I still got that red to show up though. And now you could see I'm going in and starting to color in the actual trunk of the tree, and I was using more of a hatching method at this point and incorporating my black for those shadows. The 72 set of Ohuhus that I bought does not include a lot of browns, and so that's why I was relying more on that black, but trying to be careful to make sure it doesn't overpower the rest of the picture. I think it's so much fun to use the chisel tip side for hatching and cross hatching with alcohol markers to get more of a sketchy look. I had so much fun with this piece. I wasn't too worried about messing things up because I had enough precision and control with the markers to kind of, make sure I wasn't going too out of the lines. One of the things I mentioned before is just wanting a set that has the fine nib as well, or I guess it would be the bullet nib, to complement these ones and just to have the option for finer detail. But I found that the chisel tip worked really well for this, especially with the nature of the tree branches being a little sharper in some areas. I'm going to go ahead and speed up a little faster through this since a lot of it is much of the same. I do need to practice my technique with the chisel tip. I think that the brush tip is so much easier to use in my opinion, and with the chisel tip, depending on what angle you're holding the marker from, you can get a variety of different widths of lines. So you can get a line that is a lot more precise and thin or wider, and of course people use these for calligraphy and things like that, so if you're already talented in that regard, then I'm sure you won't have trouble. But with me, I was struggling a bit because I was filling in all of these branches and just trying to make sure I was getting the right angle with the marker. Sometimes though I didn't get the right angle and some of the branches turned out a little thicker than I was hoping. Generally you want the branches at the bottom to be thinner obviously than the ones at the top, so that's what I was aiming for, but some of them just ended up a little thicker in parts that I was not intending them to be thicker in. This is a sketchbook though, and sketchbooks are the place to practice and make mistakes. I was really having a blast though, filling in all of these tree branches. It didn't even feel tedious to me, it just felt like so much fun. I never really thought to use the markers in this way until I saw some videos of people using markers or alcohol markers for landscapes and different things that I wouldn't have thought would be a good way to use them. And now that I know that, I think that I'm going to make a lot more similar pieces to this one in the future. They're just so fast to work with compared to something like paint or colored pencil. Also, I apologize for my head being in the shot a lot of the times here. I was filming this at night and I had something in my hair. So I'm getting close to the end of adding in all these branches here, and you will see me go in with a fine liner just to get a few more precise details since I was struggling with that chisel tip. I guess the next time that I get Ohuhu markers and add to my collection, I'm going to make sure I get the Honolulu B series, which includes the fine bullet tip nib, I guess. I guess it's a bullet tip and then a brush tip, especially since I already have some chisel tip markers now. So this next part is where things get a little funny. I went in to try and add in the leaves of the tree, and at first the technique that I was using was just not really cutting it and not doing it for me. So I decided at some point to change my technique and create a different texture with the leaves in the tree. I also struggled to maintain some of the highlights at the top. I would have liked to maintain a few more highlights than I actually did and preserve a little more of the white space, because I think the white space that was there ended up adding to the contrast and looked really good in the end result. I also went a little overboard with the oranges and the reds. Again, I have a 72 set, and in terms of markers, that's a fairly limited set. It's a little bit harder to blend the colors together, and there's not a lot of each color that's offered. Anyway, I managed to pull through in the end, but I think I overdid it with some of the red and orange and parts of this tree. I really should have left more of the yellow. It looks pretty cool though overall, even if some of the colors were a bit more intense than I was intending for it to be. I'm also adding some green to the bottom here. I actually think the picture would have looked better with some more green added in, just like a general gradient from orange and yellow into more of a green color of the leaves. I added some more contrast in the end with the black marker, just because I felt like the picture was a little bit lacking. And this is how it turned out. And just like that, the first page of my sketchbook is complete. So I will show you guys how the finished picture looks. I have a few qualms with it, but I'm generally happy with it, and I think it's perfect for fall. So there's the first picture. These are perforated, by the way, so you can take pages out if you would like to, but I don't want to take pages out of this one. I want it to just be a flip through sketchbook. Although I will say that the ability to take the pages out is great, just because these are not double-sided pages, so some people might just want to use this for their pictures and take their pictures out. It's not like you can use the back anyway. You could, but you would risk bleed through on the other side, because as you can see, there's bleed through on the other side. It's not as bad as with some papers for sure, but there's still bleed through on the other side, and if you created another artwork, then it would probably show through on the other side too. So I just don't think it's worth it to try and use this double-sided. Somebody mentioned to me that you can actually get a double-sided marker sketchbook by Ohuhu, and I am definitely going to look into that once I fill out this sketchbook, of course. I can't have so many empty sketchbooks, but if I do get to finishing this one eventually, the next one I buy will be double-sided, just so that it will last me a bit longer, and I'm curious to see how that double-sided sketchbook works. I don't want to waste the other side of the page though. I think what I might do is for each back side of the pages, I'll do a little swatch chart of all the colors that I used in the piece, and then maybe I will date it, of course, and then add like a little note about it or just title it or something, and just so I have something on the back side so I don't feel like the page is entirely wasted. Because I won't lie, it does feel a little sad, and I think flipping through it will be a little bit sad with all of the back sides empty like that. Well, the page still looks a bit empty, but I guess I was afraid to make the swatches too big, and then I was worried that they would show up too much on the other side, but so far no issues with that. I also forgot to mention that I did use this page protector sheet that was provided along with the sketchbook, and I placed it right here behind the first page when I was working, and as you can see, no bleed through or issues on the other side, which is great. I am happy about that. I think that it's really cool that Ohuhu includes these with their markers and also with their sketchbook sets. And looks like I still have 30 pages to go, so this should last me a while. Again, this is the 30-page Ohuhu Marker Pad, not the double-sided one. Let me know if you guys have used this before and what your thoughts are on this. I'm also really enjoying using the Ohuhu markers in general. Also, since this is a very casual video, we're just chatting here, I actually did notice something about the Ohuhu markers, and I actually have another set of alcohol markers. I have the Blick Studio markers. I'm just going to show you guys a random marker. So the Blick Studio markers I've had for several years now, if not like 10 years or something crazy like that. I also have a couple of random spare Copics, probably just like 2 or 3 laying around. I know I have a black one somewhere, and I was accidentally sent this abyss green, so I just keep it with my Ohuhu since it's a really pretty color. Maybe I have another one sitting around somewhere too. So I don't own a set of Copics, but I've used them in the past. I've known other people that use them and have them, and I've tried them out. And the Blick Studio I've used a lot in the past. This was my primary alcohol marker that I had. And I noticed that when I was using the Blick Studio markers and working on a piece for a while, I would start to get really sensitive to the alcohol scent. And I am not sure if I can substantiate this with the Copics as well, just because I haven't used them enough, but I do notice it when using Copics a little bit too. But especially with the Blick Studio markers, I would notice that my eyes after a while would start to kind of burn, and maybe I could smell the alcohol, and I'd have to ventilate a lot more, and I would start to just feel kind of like the effects of that. And mind you, I was like sitting at a normal, distance away from my art, maybe just leaning in a little bit, but sitting in a chair. It's not like my face was super up close to what I was working on, but still working on a bigger piece or even just a normal piece, I would start to become really sensitive to the alcohol scent in this marker, and I think that's part of the reason why I don't really use them very much anymore. But I've used the Ohuhu set twice now to work on a smaller piece, which is this one in the sketchbook, and then also a bigger piece in my initial video about them, and I didn't notice the same scent, the same strong scent. Obviously, every alcohol marker contains alcohol. It's going to smell like alcohol in some capacity, but with the Ohuhus, I just didn't notice it actually bothering me, and I wasn't thinking about it while I was working. So usually I start to get the burning eyes, or I start to kind of feel like my nose is burning a little bit, or I can really smell that strong alcohol smell, and I want to open the window and just like get away from the art for a bit. But that didn't happen with the Ohuhus both times that I've used them so far. And it might be something I have to keep track of as I continue to use them before I can make that claim, but so far I don't feel like I've had much of an issue, and that's as someone who generally is pretty sensitive. If I find that to be true as I continue to use the Ohuhus and get a better feel for them, then I might eventually do a giveaway for my Blick Studio markers, because I would hate for them to go to waste. But I know there are a lot of people who use different brands of alcohol markers and are not quite as sensitive to that alcohol scent. So of course I would include that disclaimer about them before, and I would have to go through, swatch them all out, see if any have dried up, and also do some research as to whether they're refillable or not, because I don't have a lot of information on these markers. But they are pretty good alcohol markers, and I just feel sad having them sit in my drawer. They have got some use out of them. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this up because this chat has gotten just a little bit too long here, but I am really happy with my purchase of the Ohuhu Honolulu markers and this marker pad so far, and I'm excited to keep using them, maybe make a few more videos about them too as I get a better feel and practice with them. But I will say that if you're interested and you haven't seen it yet, I do have another video about reviewing the Ohuhu markers when I first got them and doing a little first impressions and swatch chart. So if you want to see more about that, I will link that in the description box down below for you to check that out if you haven't already. Let me know what you guys think of the Ohuhu markers and the marker pad, of course. And thanks so much for watching. As always, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye for now.